Situation Room and not far from where they keep the vice presidential limo. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stinchfield. Happy Friday to you. So, liberal lunacy is on display all across the country. You know, for the uninformed, when they hear about some of the liberal lunacy, they find it absolutely hard to believe. They find it unfathomable, some of the policies that liberals are actually pushing. My job is to show you those policies so you can show your friends those policies, and maybe if there are some liberals or uninformed Americans watching, they will see them for themselves. I saw testimony recently from a woman named Abigail Martinez. She went in front of the California State Senate to talk about gender ideology, gender affirmation, and how it killed her daughter. Her daughter committed suicide, but I believe she was actually executed by the state of California. When you hear her heart-wrenching testimony, I hope that there are uninformed Democrats out there that says, wait a second, what path is our party going down when we push this transgender mania? This is Abigail Martinez talking about what the state did to her daughter.
My daughter was murdered by a gender ideology. CPS took my daughter when she was 16 years old. It was held by her public school counselor and LGBTQ group rights and another trans-identified girl. My daughter was taken from her loving home because the state of California claimed I was abusive for not affirming her trans identity.
You know what other evidence they used that mom was allegedly abusive to her daughter? She took away her daughter's phone. Her daughter, in the middle of the night, was online talking to these so-called nonprofits that push gender transformation on our youth. She was so upset about that, she took her daughter's phone away. Well, the school counselor, the LGBTQ group, and then, of course, CPS stepped in and, according to Abigail Martinez, snatched her daughter away. She continues her story here.
Against my consent, my daughter was given testosterone instead of therapy. The LGBTQ group used her to raise money for them. Look at the poor reject trans boy, they said. Why are there so many transgender in foster care? Because this state take them from their families, tell them to run, then steal them.
How dare the state of California? You hear what I just said? The state. S-T-A-T-E. The state thinks it knows better on how to raise your children than you do. So it snatches up a 16-year-old girl from her mother who's doing everything she can to stop her daughter from mutilating her body. The girl is 16. It is not the state's role to decide what is best for that child. It's the mother's role, and I believe that child would be here today if she was allowed to stay with mom. Would she have been angry at mom? Maybe. How many 16-year-olds are angry with their parents? A lot. It means the parents are probably doing a pretty good job of raising them in many cases. The story gets even more horrific. It's hard to listen to think this is happening in America, and Democrats are pushing this on all of us.
The damage was done. My By then, my daughter was in a horrible mental and physical pain. My daughter knelt down in front of a train. She was murdered by gender ideology. I beg you, stop pushing gender ideology. I don't want any parent to feel what I feel every day. Affirmation is not good for the health, safety, and welfare of any child.
Folks, I'll tell you what, I play a tough guy on this TV show. I play a tough guy on my radio show. I'll take the fight to the left any day of the week. That makes me want to cry for that mom. I'm a dad. Anybody from the state comes in and wants to take my child from me, push them onto a gender transformation surgery, mutilate their bodies, ultimately leading down the road to suicide, which is state-sponsored execution. It's state-sponsored kidnapping. You know, this reminds me of a soundbite I played for you a couple weeks ago on this program. State senator in California said, if you're a parent and you love your child and you live in California, there's only one solution: leave.
And now we have this, where if a parent does not support the ideology of the government, they're going to be taken away from the home. In the past, when we've had these discussions and I've seen parental rights atrophied, I've encouraged people to keep fighting. I've changed my mind on that. If you love your children, you need to flee California. You need to flee.
You need to flee California because you have no control over your children anymore. I mean it when I tell you, and this is not a joke. My son, he's 14 years old. At dinner time, he doesn't get the final say on whether he gets dessert or not. If he had pizza for lunch, pancakes for breakfast, he's not getting dessert after dinner. It's that simple. It's about his health. If a 14-year-old can't make a decision on whether he gets dessert or not after dinner, not in my household, you think he can make a decision of whether or not to cut his private parts off? But California wants to push your children into making that decision. There was a group of common sense Californians, it was a bipartisan group actually, by the way, that caught up with Governor Gavin Newsom. Governor Goodhair. They confronted him on some very serious issues. I want you to watch him. He doesn't say much, but his arrogance is on display.
You know Chloe Cole, at the age of 15, she got her breast removed and now regrets it because of gender affirmative care.
How are you?
How about the Lodi woman? At 13, she got her breast removed. Gender affirmative care. No one stopped her. She was mentally unwell.
Yeah, I mean, I just had
You can't get a tattoo until you're 18. You can't vape until you're 18. You can't go in a tanning salon. But young girls and young boys can get their body parts removed. Talk to me. Our duty. I'm an attorney.
You know what she said along the way there? In California, you can't decide to get a tattoo until you're 18. But you can decide to have your breasts cut off. Folks, lunacy rules the day in California and so many other states across this country. Lunacy rules the day in the United States Senate that's controlled by Democrats. I'm telling you, liberals, Democrats have gone off the common sense deep end. It doesn't exist anymore. There is no common ground between us and them. The woman who said she was an attorney there talking to Gavin Newsom is actually also a Democrat. She went before a committee in Sacramento. Listen to her testimony.
This bill permits a counselor to decide if a child 12 or older is mature enough to be placed in a facility away from his parents without any claim of abuse or indication that the child is in danger. This bill is state-sanctioned kidnapping.
They're already doing it. When I hear Abigail Martinez's story, what do they need another bill for? It seems to me like they're already kidnapping children in California. So Gavin Newsom, the governor there, doesn't want to admit that gender transformation is literally horrific. It is mutilation of our bodies, our kids' bodies, God's bodies, the ones that he created. Gavin Newsom doesn't want to admit that, but I'll tell you who does. A man by the name of Billy Burley is a very, very brave man. He went through gender transformation twice. He was a man who transformed to a woman in his mind. He was so upset with where that led, the pain that he went through, both physical and mental, he transformed back to a man, ultimately destroying him as a human being, both mentally and physically. He'll admit that. He did on this program.
Because the surgeries were horrific, and especially my first SRS surgery, I was bleeding. They couldn't stop the bleeding, and they had to give me a blood transfusion and plasma just to try to bring my red blood cell count back. So I was in a desperate situation. I believed the lies, and I was going through desperate measures just to survive.
I need every Democrat who is not intimately ingrained in what is going on in the world to hear what I'm saying tonight. This gender ideology is killing our children. It's destroying our children. It's mutilating our children. It is barbaric. And yet the Democrats push this for what? To blur the lines between men and women, ultimately to destroy society, make it easier to run ramshot over all of us. That certainly is one of the reasons why they're doing this. Joining me now is Republican California State Representative, a man who's pushing back on all of this nonsense in Sacramento, California. Our friend Bill Asaley is back with us. Representative Asaley, it's great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me back.
What is your reaction to first this mom whose daughter kneeled before a train and killed herself after CPS took her into custody for gender transformation surgery stuff?
I'm outraged. It's outrageous that the state would do that under the auspice of acting in the best interest of the child. It's not true. What I suspect happened is they found some radical judge to go along with this claim that by not affirming this mother was endangering the kid, and they took her daughter away from her. She's not the only one, though. There's other victims out there. There's a mom who sued the school district because the school district was actively involved in transitioning her daughter without telling her, without her knowledge or consent. Her daughter ends up committing suicide, and she had no idea this was happening. This is happening time and time again now, and something needs to be done about it. Lawsuits need to be filed. They basically need to be sued from here into infinity because none of this is legal and none of it's constitutional.
Yeah. You know, as many of you know there, Bill, I know you know because you've been on my radio program in the morning. I do morning drive radio in Los Angeles. It's tough for me to say, and my co-host Jen Horn gets so mad at me when I say, you know what? I don't know, maybe it is time to just leave California. If the state is literally kidnapping children and the parents get no say in this, I don't know what the answer is. If I'm a parent, I'm getting the hell out of California, Bill.
That's not the American way. It's not. You got to stay and fight because if they do it in California, they're going to come to other states and do it too. I say hold the line. I introduced a bill, for example, AB 1314, which would require schools to notify parents before they transition them. That was killed in the Assembly Committee. But now what we're doing is we're going to actual local school districts at the school board level, and we're going to get that implemented there. There is hope. You can file lawsuits. I am telling you the stuff they are doing is not constitutional. The Supreme Court needs to rule on this. You have a right to raise your kids. The state does not have a right to come in and tell you how to raise your kids and what to do with them. That has got to be struck down quickly.
Do you know when this woman and others like her testify before a state committee, in this case it was the state Senate that she was testifying before, you ever run into Democrats in the hallway that say, my Lord, I didn't think of that? I mean, is there any Democrats up there that show any signs of common sense or thinking maybe we're going down the wrong road here?
They won't admit it. I think they know it, but they're in too deep. This is the issue of the next election. I'm telling you right now, this is the issue. The Democrats do not want to run on their record. They don't want to run on homelessness or crime. They are inventing a new civil rights issue that somehow LGBT kids are in danger and they're going to be the saviors. This is the defining issue. If we do not defeat a bunch of Democrats in the next election, they will continue down this path and they will continue to erode the rights of parents in this state and ultimately throughout this country.
Yeah. Assemblyman Bill Asaley, it is great having you on the program. I appreciate the fight you're putting up there. And The dog you have with you doesn't sound like it's that mean of a dog, but I'm sure he or she is fighting right along with you.
That is Zoe the Husky. She likes to talk, so I apologize about her.
All right, no problem. Bill Asaley, it's great having you on the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. You know, I told you one of the things that we have to do is show the lunacy of the left, because I think there are many moderates that don't understand just how insane people really are. How about the CEO of a feminine products company? Okay, I guess they sell tampons and the like. This is the CEO refusing to use the term woman. She sells feminine products, for crying out loud.
History and society has built up this stigma that makes menstruators feel so ashamed.
Yes.
It makes us feel like there's something wrong with our bodies. We're taught that period blood is this contaminable, like disgusting
dirty,
thing.
nasty,
dirty.
yes.
And I think that it always breaks my heart to hear so many stories every day of young menstruators who get their period and have never heard about it,
Yes.
right?
Mixed menstruators? Menstruator? Men don't menstruate, okay? They don't. It is impossible for a man to menstruate. The only people that can menstruate are women. Just say it. So I play a clip like that. I hope my mother, who's a New York liberal, God bless her, she's a great lady, she doesn't believe some of the stuff I tell her that's coming out of the mouths of leftist loons. I hope she watches this. She refuses to watch this program, by the way, but if she watched, maybe, just maybe, she would see just how crazy her side really is. All right, Janet Yellen's trip to China projected more weakness on behalf of the United States. I'll explain how the Biden administration is caving to China. Again, go figure, that's next. back, everyone. So Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, had her first full-day meeting in Beijing, China today. And go figure, she portrayed weakness to China. She came out with this same nonsense that we are not in a, quote, competition with China and that they are not out to take a winner-take-all fight. Now, that's fine if China felt the same way. The Chinese Communist Party does not feel the same way. This is a winner-take-all fight for the Chinese Communist Party. I will tell you this. I'm a firm believer that the CCP can be destroyed if we decouple our economy from China. The United States needs to start separating itself from being so reliant on China. We could cripple the CCP. Do you think Janet Yellen said that? Nope, just the opposite.
I also made clear that actions we take to protect our national security are designed to be narrowly targeted and that they are premised on straightforward national security considerations. They're not undertaken to gain economic advantage over China.
Why would you say that? All you're telling China is, listen, we're relying on you. We're going to stay reliant on you. You'll keep making money off of us. And in the end, you'll ultimately destroy us if China gets its way. We're here to say, no, we're going to push back on that. China doesn't play fair. We know that. We know with currency manipulation, they don't play fair. But then just think about the theft, the spying on America, the intellectual property that they steal, the forced labor camps that allow them to send very cheap goods and services over to the United States. Well, Karine Jean-Pierre, the president's spokesperson, was asked about that. How do you treat China if they're not playing fair? This was her answer.
China is going to continue to be around and be a major player on the world stage. So it is important to have intense competition, requires intense diplomacy. That's what you see Secretary Yellen do. That's what you saw Secretary Blinken do. These are the type of conversation that the president has had with President Xi and meetings that he's had with him as well. And it is important to manage this in a responsible way.
In a fairy tale world, the United States and China lock hands and we work together, and we both prosper. That's a fairy tale world. It could happen if we could crush the Chinese Communist Party. You do away with the CCP, the fairy tale world may actually exist in the end. Here's President Trump talking about this whole thing.
I stood up to China like no administration has ever done before, bringing hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into our treasury from China, and when no other president had gotten 10 cents from China, that not one other president before me got anything from China except ripped off. Our country was being ripped off.
Well, welcome to Rip Off World again, because that's exactly what's happening now, thanks to Joe Biden. Joining me now from the new federal state of China, the organization aimed at taking down the CCP, replacing it really, is Nicole Tsai, our good friend. Nicole, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, Nicole, let's take it step by step. Janet Yellen portrays weakness. Let's not decouple. Your response.
Well, her visit is really a propaganda victory for the CCP. I think Janet Yellen has been misled and misinformed by her longtime old friend from the CCP's intel community. His name is Shang Weijian. He's a CCP ministry level agent. He became a friend of Janet Yellen since 1980s when he was studying in UC Berkeley for his PhD program. And he's a big proponent of the CCP's engagement policy with the U.S. And because of that connection, he joined the World Bank as the investment officer in Washington, D.C. He later joined JP Morgan and became a managing director. He's now the chairman and CEO of a CCP's biggest private equity firm company called PAX. And he's managing over $45 billion asset under management. So he's a very close aide to Janet Yellen, and he often appears on the U.S. mainstream media touting about the CCP's narrative of investment into the CCP country. Let's remember that the engagement policy with China is not to engage with the Chinese people. It's the engagement policy with the CCP that has been suppressing the people in China, the people in Hong Kong, and the people in Taiwan. So that whole engagement policy is really CCP's policy. policy to enslave the entire world. So we're very disturbed by this statement, and we're calling the Congress to bring Shang Weijian to Congress to testify, because he has family and friends in the United States of America. He's probably living in the United States, and he needs to testify before the Congress. How did he influence Janet Yellen and the U.S. policy on China? And also, he's a big proponent of the CCP's 1,000 Talent program, which is to bring the U.S.-trained Chinese nationals back to China and work for the CCP. He's also the mastermind of the CCP stealing of hundreds of billions of dollars from the American People's Public Pension Fund.
So it's interesting because when it comes to Democrats, and honestly, some Republicans too, it seems all these connections go back to these high-level, high-ranking members of whether it's business and industry, whether it's the intelligence community for the Chinese CCP. It's all connected. There was a video that was released yesterday, the New York Post got it, by Dr. Gal Loft. We went through it on this program. He calls himself patient zero when it comes to Biden corruption as the #1 whistleblower. He was a high-ranking advisor to the Chinese energy company, the CEFC, and he talked about a nonprofit here in the United States run by the Chinese energy company. Let him tell the story, and then I'll get your response to this.
The U.S. government claimed that I acted on behalf of CFC, and therefore I'm a foreign agent. But let me tell you a little secret. The same CFC that the U.S. government claims was associated with the Chinese intelligence and, quote, an international criminal organization, was a 501c3 charitable organization registered in the state of Virginia and approved by the IRS. The same organization was also a major donor to the Clinton Foundation and Columbia University. Needless to say that none of their executives were charged for any wrongdoing.
Seems unbelievable, but it seems to be confirmed over and over again. Nicole, your response to that?
Well, I think half of the people working in Washington, D.C. and Washington's permanent political establishment needs to register themselves as a FARA agent. And clearly, CEFC China Energy chairman, the CEO, Ye Jianming, he's the one that has paid tens of millions of dollars to the Biden family. Now this guy has been disappeared. And you know what? Who's also patient zero to the weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI? Mao Guo, because Mao Guo is CCP's enemy #1, and he's the one who got targeted and persecuted by the weaponized DOJ and FBI for blowing whistles against the powerful collusion between the U.S. government officials and the CCP, and now he's still kept in federal prison without bail. So we need both of them to testify before the Congress to expose the highest level of corruption at the U.S. government.
All right, I want to read two things I want to do. I want to read an email that has been recently released from Hunter Biden to that energy official, Xi Jinping. This is the email. Let me read it to you. It says, "Dear Chairman Yi, I hope my letter finds you well." This is from Hunter Biden, by the way. "I regret missing you on your last visit to the United States. Please accept the best wishes from the entire Biden family, as well as my partners. As you know, since our last meeting, we have concluded the establishment of Sinohawk Holdings, and I look forward to introducing you to Mr. Tony Bobulinski, who Bobulinski is the one who's blown the whistle on Hunter Biden. All of this is connected. You brought Miles Guo into this now, who also should testify before Congress. I firmly believe this. He issued a warning, again, another very prophetic warning, and he said that Joe Biden, according to his intelligence sources, Miles's intelligence sources, made 3 promises to China. Let me play that clip for you and then get your response.
In Biden's personal letter to Xi, he made 3 commitments. First, the Biden administration will not seek to change the political system of the CCP. Second, the Biden administration will re-establish the engagement policy with the CCP. The U.S. will no longer consider decoupling from the CCP. Third, the Biden administration will restore high-level communication with the CCP on all fronts, including military exchanges. In the event of CCP's takeover of Taiwan, the Biden administration will not seek to overthrow the CCP.
So So the only thing that hasn't played out yet is the takeover of Taiwan, but we're seeing everything else play out just as Miles predicted.
Yes, absolutely. Everything Miles was saying in that video was like 2021, 2 years ago, and everything he was saying has become a reality today. You know what? Another reason for Miles Guo to testify before the Congress is because Ye Jianming had already been disappeared by the CCP, so he cannot testify. He cannot become a good witness. But Miles Guo knows Ye Jianming, and Miles Guo can come to the Congress and testify and tell the American people the much needed to be heard truth, because this country, people have lost confidence and trust in the justice system. And what with Miles Guo and Gao and Tony Bobulinski, they can restore the public trust and confidence in this justice system. So bring them to Congress and testify.
This is something I'm going to be pushing for very hard on this program, is for Miles Guo to go before Congress and let them ask him anything they want, and then let the chips fall where they may. I wonder if the Justice Department will let that happen. My assumption is they will not until a Republican man by the name of Donald Trump is back in the White House. Nicole Tsai, it is great having you on the program. Happy July 4th week to you, and we appreciate the work the new federal state of China is doing.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, coming up after the break, Disney's woke craziness is all over the place. They're losing money at the box office like you wouldn't believe. $900 million. We'll talk about that and what could be the next Bud Light, maybe Ben & Jerry's ice cream. That's next. So, folks, earlier this week, we told you about Ben & Jerry's ice cream issuing a tweet that basically said, on this July 4th, the United States sits on stolen land. Well, the backlash was quick, fast, furious. You better believe it. They now lost about $2 billion in market cap. Maybe, if everything goes well, Ben & Jerry's will suffer the same fate as Bud Light. Bud Light continues to suffer as it pushed that transgender mania nonsense. Disney now is the other victim this week. I am so happy to say that Sound of Freedom is killing it in the box office. This is this movie, very unwoke, about child sex trafficking and rescuing them. It's a true story. It was wrestled away from Disney and then put out to theaters in about 2,000 fewer theaters than Indiana Jones, and yet Sound of Freedom pulls in $14 million on opening day versus Indiana Jones $11 million and crushes them. Why is Disney going down the toilet? $900 million they've lost on recent films. Maybe because you take Buzz Lightyear, which Toy Story was one of my favorite movies. It really is. A little boy that I had growing up, you know, my son, watching Toy Story with him. We still watch it to this day. But now they do this with Buzz Lightyear? Watch. Gay and lesbian stuff with Buzz Lightyear? Are you nuts? No parent wants to see that. No kid needs to see that. This is the kind of stuff that's crazy. Then they take The Little Mermaid. I wasn't a huge fan of Little Mermaid, not quite my style, but that's okay. My nieces all thought it was great. Well, they take Ariel, and apparently they make Ariel going from a white mermaid to a black mermaid in the remake. Why? What's the point? Just leave things alone. And then there's this new Elemental movie that's about to come out, and they've got a non-binary character in it as well. Disney is going down the tubes. Disney was supposed to be about wholesome family entertainment. I remember sitting on Sunday evenings, and Disney, what was it called? The World of Disney, something like that, would come on, and we'd all sit around in a family and watch. There wasn't any of this craziness. Now they're losing money. Why? Maybe to help answer some of these questions is our good friend from Turning Point USA. She's a correspondent over there. Morgan McMichael is with us. Morgan, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Grant.
Morgan, it's good to see you. I saw a post of yours on social media spelling out all the flops of Disney over the last week. Why don't you take me through some of them?
It's been absolutely crazy. I mean, Disney has lost millions of dollars. The box office numbers have told the story themselves. Look at Elemental, where they have a non-binary, I'm not kidding, a water droplet who is non-binary in this character. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the fact of the matter is Disney used to be a family-friendly, a family and children-focused brand, which now has been completely scraped and honestly is just a subliminal messaging indoctrination platform. But they've also lost millions of subscribers on Disney Plus. Their stocks are now at one of the all-time lows that Disney has ever seen. They're losing millions of dollars from their box office numbers. And it's very telling. Also, out of the past year, of the 8 films that were released, Guardians of the Galaxy was one of them. And still, they lost over, I think, $850 million or $900 million in the past year, which is insane, seeing the amount of major motion picture films that were released, including The Little Mermaid as well. And I think it's honestly obvious that the consumers are no longer putting up with the woke and the wokeism that Disney is wanting to put out and shove down everybody's throats. And so, honestly, good job, consumers, for not supporting Disney anymore.
How did Guardians of the Galaxy rank on the woke meter?
Pretty woke, which makes me really sad because I myself am a Marvel fan. I used to be a Star Wars fan as well, but I think Disney has really put a damper on all of my old favorite classics. I also used to love every single Disney princess. And my question for everyone who says that Ariel is totally fine with the race swapping is, okay, then let's take Tiana from Princess and the Frog and make her look like Cinderella and see how that plays out.
So you bring up Ariel and the character, I guess this is who played her, Halle Bailey, not Halle Berry, but Halle Bailey, talked about this, and I want you to listen to her and I'll get your response. Cut 3.
as a Black woman, I wanted to keep the essence of who I was. I feel like if you cast somebody that's me, you should keep all the things that are, natural to her. So I was really happy to Rob and John for being really open and allowing me to keep the essence of me and my locks, which are very special to me. I've had them since I was 5, and what that means. And so having that, as well as a fusion with the loose hair, like I feel like a mermaid would have a mixture of hair like that, too.
So, honestly, Morgan, I may surprise you. I don't blame her for this. She's just an actress going. If you're going to give her a job playing Black Ariel, then go take the job and make some money. But in the end, it's about Disney not understanding what its customers want.
Absolutely. And I think it also just takes the original and completely erases it. I mean, I've even seen in some stores the merchandise is from the original Ariel doesn't exist anymore, and there's only the new Ariel merchandise. And I think it was 100% a marketing play. Now, I think Halle Bailey is a phenomenal actor. I did watch The Little Mermaid because I do love The Little Mermaid and I love Ariel. But the thing is, it completely distorted the original character. That was not Ariel to me. And I think, she would have done a phenomenal job playing a character like Tiana, but the fact of the matter is Halle Bailey does not represent who Ariel is from a visual perspective, but she is a good actor.
All right, so the producer of Sound of Freedom was on this program talking about Disney and these problems from Disney and really what may be at play and very nefarious thoughts from him. And remember, Sound of Freedom was actually wrestled from Disney. Disney owned this movie. They didn't want it. They'd rather have it shut down because it just exposes so many of the things that I think Hollywood secretly supports. This was Eduardo, the producer, on this program this week. Roll it.
Competing with the biggest company in the world, entertainment company in the world. They have 2,000 more theaters than us. They have big budgets. It's Indiana Jones, a big hero, but it's a science fiction hero. It's not a real hero, right? But I have to say this. Disney, they have an agenda. They're trying to corrupt your children. They are corrupting your children. Sound of Freedom wants to save your children. But we had no chance. I mean, we're the underdog. We're little. We're number 1 in the box office July 4th, thanks to the people.
Morgan, I'm going to tell you a story about a woman who walked out of Sound of Freedom after 20 minutes into it. And this is not the story you might think it is. This is a story of how good this movie is. She is Venezuelan. She brought her kids here from Venezuela legally, but when she had her little kids, all she was told was, you can't go out in public, they're going to steal your kids, they're going to take your kids, and it was so emotional for her to watch this. Emotionally, she couldn't take it. She said it's the most important movie Americans should see. That from a woman who walked out because she lived this firsthand. Your response to Sound of Freedom's success, Morgan?
It's been an incredible success. I watched the film, and it was one of the most moving films I've seen in a very long time. And I mean, the producer and directors are all absolutely correct that, Disney does have an underlying hidden agenda that is attacking children, whereas there are films and other good people out there that are trying to save our children and our nation's children. And that's the fact. I mean, sex trafficking, human trafficking, child trafficking happens every single day in the United States. And people don't even realize how lucky they are to live in a home and be safe. And I mean, one thing that's really interesting is we talk about the open borders all the time. Think about the thousands of children that are smuggled across the border and then sold into sex slavery in the United States, because I believe it's 15% of trafficking victims in the United States are undocumented. And that's what's really scary.
Yeah, it sure is. Morgan McMichael, it's so great to talk to you. I appreciate you coming on tonight. As always, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, folks, you did the tough thing if you're a business owner. You stayed open during COVID. The government allowed you to. You put your people on the payroll. You pulled your business through the pandemic. And now doing the tough thing could actually qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Guess who used these guys? I've got a big refund coming. I did. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. I looked at my refund. I said, this is too good to be true. But it's legit because I employed my people, and I kept them working through the pandemic. If you did that, you got to jump on board with this. This program is complicated, but nobody knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front, they do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increases in sales. You did the tough thing. Now let covidtaxrelief.org help you. covidtaxrelief.org. You get up to $26,000 per employee. covidtaxrelief.org. All right, the Biden administration is still allowing our borders to be wide open. Media doesn't want to cover this anymore, but our own Ben Bergquam caught some shocking footage of just how easy it is to get into the country. We'll show you that next. You know, it's amazing to me the mainstream media refuses to cover what is going on our southern border now. Don't think it's just gone away, the problem. It hasn't. I'll tell you what's going on right now is it is overrun and the media is ignoring it. I want you to take a look at this video. It's drone footage shot by our own Ben Bergquam on the top of Mount Cristo in New Mexico. It's illegals going over the mountain there in New Mexico in the United States, and literally they just start throwing rocks at the drones. They don't want the drone anywhere near it. Ben described the scene, what he was going through. Take a listen.
You can see these guys just walking around. These are all illegals from Mexico, all the ones that don't want to get caught. These are the guys that all of the fake asylum seekers are creating a distraction for. Every single one of these, people that can't afford to pay their debt to the cartels control them. They'll send them over. Some of these people are slaves for the cartels, and they're basically being sent down to stash houses. Some of them are criminals that don't want to get caught, but they just sit right up there, right up on top of the ridge, waiting for their moment when they think it's safe to go.
It's amazing. Ben sent me this footage earlier in the week, and I thought to myself, my Lord, nobody is covering this. Well, Ben Berkwam, our Real America's Voice correspondent who works the border, joins us now to help break some of this stuff down. Ben, did it even surprise you? I know you've seen it all, but they're throwing rocks at your drone.
The cartel bunkers a few months ago, so that didn't surprise me. The throwing rocks didn't surprise me, but the brazenness of it, the fact that they do it during the day. This used to happen at night, and you in order to see it, this has been going on for years, going over Mount Cristo Rey. That's why President Trump was actually building the wall. They built the wall up to the mountain. They built it on the easier part on the flat ground, and they already had the material set to build up and over the wall, and Joe Biden, as soon as he took office, stopped that build. So the fact that they're doing it doesn't surprise me, but the fact that they're doing it during the day, and I actually ended up climbing back up the mountain, and I interviewed some of those guys up on top of the mountain, even interviewed the cartel coyote that was leading them over, and they basically have no fear. I mean, they'll run away, they'll run back into Mexico and wait for another opportunity. It's absolutely outrageous. It's overrun, and it's because of the policies in Washington, D.C.
Speaking of no fear, buddy, you're going up and talking to cartel members. I mean, that's the guy with no fear. Let me run that clip. This is cut 4 of you interviewing some of these people.
How much did you pay to have to come across?
A lot of money.
Yeah?
$500 por mono. $500 por mono. They charge $500 for each person.
Just to come over the mountain?
Just to cross them over.
Do they owe more debt when they get there? Are they? No, they're free.
To put them there.
And then they're free to go. Or do they
pay some more money to
get to the next place?
Yeah.
Ben, why aren't these guys just logging in on the CBP One app, going to a port of entry, and waltzing on in?
Well, that's the whole thing. This whole game is set up for the cartels. So the cartels make money on all of them. They send the ones that want to get caught, that they can make up any story on. That's why they drop the IDs on the Mexico side. They'll send them through the ports of entry with the CBP One. It takes all the Border Patrol resources to process these guys, and then that opens up these areas for the cartel to send the ones that can't go through that way, that would get deported. They're previous deportees. They have felony records. A lot of them have felony records in the United States. Some of them are wanted in other countries. That's also the reason why these are the places where the terrorists go. It's just clear. If you're going to go that way, there's a reason why you're going to take the effort and the danger to go that way, and it's because you're probably not the best person. You're probably not the person we want in our country.
Yeah. Real quick, Border Patrol agents, I know their hands are tied by the administration. I don't think this is the line officers that are the problem here. But you caught some footage. I'm going to roll this real quick. We're almost out of time. But cut 5 of the helicopter on top of this mountain. Let's go with that.
All right, they're on him. They're on him. All right, flagged him down. Now he's trying to run up into the mountains. Took his shirt off. He's trying to go up the hill now. So he's trying to climb up the mountain and get away from these guys.
Ben, I have to ask you, I know you're not law enforcement. Are you in communication with these Border Patrol agents when you see stuff? Do you call it in?
Yeah, I do. In fact, later on the next day, I was going down a part of border that, come to find out, is totally not manned. It's from the port of entry at Santa Teresa down to Columbus, New Mexico. It's a 20-mile stretch. I was down there and I saw group after group after group climbing over the fence, climbing down these ladders. I ended up cutting down a bunch of the ladders. I called into Border Patrol while I was live filming it. I said, hey, this is happening. I gave them the coordinates, and they told me over the phone, we have nobody to send to you. We have nobody out there. And I feel for them. You said it. God bless Border Patrol. These guys want to be able to do their job. Unfortunately, Joe Biden and Secretary Mayorkas are they're not allowing them to. It's an absolute tragedy. And ultimately, it's a death sentence for our country if we allow it to continue.
It sure is. Their job duties have changed. They're not law enforcement officers anymore. They're paper pushers. They're processors. And that's what they've all been pulled in to do, is just push paper and process these illegals coming through. Ben Bergquam, I'm always so impressed with the work that you're doing down there. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, absolutely. Nobody's doing stuff like he is. I'm telling you what, between him and Oscar and a couple of the other guys down there, doing great stuff. Oscar Ramirez is who I'm talking about. All right, folks, listen to me. Birch Gold is who you need to visit if you want to find a portfolio protection program. I'm talking about gold because gold has stood the test of time when it comes to an inflation hedge, when it comes to privacy, when it comes to security, when it comes to having another option than simply putting your money in the banks that are failing. It's really an important move. To find out whether it's right for you or not, what I would ask you to do is get in touch with the folks at Birch Gold. Here's how you do it. Text America to the number 989898. Again, it's America to the number 989898. I trust these guys. They're good people. They'll talk to you about what's right for you. No amount too big or too small. So talk to them over at Birch Gold. Again, text America to the number 989898. All right, Kamala Harris embarrasses herself again. That's next.
Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. The Biden administration appears set to send another $800 million in military equipment to Ukraine, but this transfer is more controversial than others because it could include cluster munitions that can indiscriminately kill over 7 acres. Conservative rabble-rouser Marjorie Taylor Greene got the boot from the House's most conservative caucus yesterday, but today she is standing defiant and says she answers to no one but her constituents. It's that time of the political season when candidates reveal how much they've raised, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is awash in money. His team raised $150 million in just 6 weeks. And the White House cocaine story just gets crazier. Now officials have revealed it was found near the Situation Room and not far from where they keep the vice presidential limo. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
Folks, I got a question for you. What is culture, Kamala Harris?
Well, I think culture is, it is a reflection of our moment and our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because, you know, it comes in the morning.
At least she can't explain it. How about culture just being a series of beliefs, fundamentals that are passed down from one generation to another? It could be art, it could be institutions, it could be beliefs that your father passed down to you. Culture's pretty simple. My culture's great. The left's culture's nuts. That's a fact. It's going to do it for us today. Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks to all of you. Have yourself a fabulous weekend, folks, and we'll see you back here Monday evening. Thanks for watching.
From Studio 6B, it's a Friday night. You know what that means. We'll see how long it takes to get off the rails on a Friday night with Slick.